making a big project for the USA, new process when preparing for exhibition at the time of the corona, talking about his latest exhibition in the Lisson Gallery, Shanghai, and revealing new works in process. All of this and much more in our talk and discussion for today with Richard Deacon.
Different people around the world sharing with us their opinion, ideas, and thoughts about the changing of our time and hope for the future.
Thank you for joining us for the first talk and discussion of the year 2023. I am honored to make this talk today with Richard Deacon. Richard Deacon is an abstract British sculptor. He is best known for his large and open lyric forms. And he was the Turner Winner Prize of the year in 1987. Richard is working and living in London and working in the UK, in Europe, in America, and Asia. Thank you very much for joining us for this talk, Richard.
It's a pleasure, Amit. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Can you share with us what happened to you during the time of the pandemic?
The lockdown happened over here, I think in end of March, something like that. It was a couple of weeks when it was a really chaotic situation. And I left London because I got a house out in the country. And within over the 2-week period, almost everything that I got planned for the coming year got cancelled. Suddenly there was nothing to plan for, and no one was making plans because nobody knew what could happen. Now, artists are okay in a situation like that because they can always mess around and think that they're doing something important. I didn't have a studio, but that was kind of interesting rather than difficult. Well, I converted the room the washing machines in to a place that I could make little models in. The second thing I did was starting to make drawings, and that was the biggest thing that I did over the time. Actually, I made a birthday card for one of my granddaughter, and I drew the card, and then it was I wanted it to be a bit more. I wanted the drawing to be a bit more fuzzy, so I sprayed it with water and then blotted it with a piece of paper. And the transfer of the image from the drawing onto the blotting paper, I thought looked really good. So that kind of started me doing a whole lot of drawings where I'd do the drawing and then soak them and then use blotting paper to pick up the color. And so there was a transfer between the drawing and the thing. And then I started to work on lithographs with Felix Bauer in Cologne on a project that he'd asked me about doing some prints for the Griffelkunst organization. And I'd said, well, yeah, but how am I going to do it? And then I thought about this transfer business with the paper, with the blotting paper, and remembered that you could do transfer drawings with lithographs. So Felix sent me some transfer paper, and the transfer paper. There's some things with drawing that actually you need to, when you're drawing, you need to find something you like to draw on, and you need to find something you like to draw with, and then the whole thing kind of goes on from that. So sometimes it might be a kind of, when I was a student, I used to like drawing on really shitty pieces of paper, really low quality, very thin paper. I've never really been a heavy duty kind of watercolor paper person. I actually like quite thin paper. But there's also a bit about how the mark sits on the surface and all of that, and how the tactility of it. But anyway, I like drawing this. And I also found that I could use a solvent on the surface without upsetting the surface. so I could move the drawing around, move or change the drawing. But anyway, the first two were quite successful, which were for the Griffithons. But I'd liked doing them so much that I asked Felix if he was interested to do some more. So we ended up, and he said yes, actually, because he didn't have too much to do anyway. So we ended up doing like 26 prints. And the process conceptually is fantastically interesting. A drawing from one surface to another surface. And I find that really, it's not a copy, it's the same mark that's moved from the piece of paper onto the stone. And I found that really fantastic.
I would like to ask you if you can tell us a little bit about your big project that happened in America at the time of the pandemic.
And the only thing that was still active, was this very big project in America, for which we'd bought the materials just before the lockdown started. They came from Malaysia, stainless steel from Malaysia, and it needed all to come from one batch in order for it to work. And the client in the States said that they wanted to continue with the project, which was a huge support. And it also enabled the guys at the fabricators to carry on working the time. So, and it meant that they had there was some money coming in. There was a little bit of money coming into me, and some money coming into them. We still haven't had an opening for this work. I never met the collector. The contact was through a gallery that I worked with in the south of England, and the collector wanted to buy or was interested to commission a work from me. And why he's good to work with is that he didn't feel he needed to meet me in order to commission. Some collectors like to think they collect the artist, that the artist's a friend. Others keep their distance, and it's all done through the work. And for me, it's much better if it's done through the work, either because I'm antisocial and not great at self-promotion, or because I think they should be buying the work and not buying me. When Charles Saatchi was the first collector ever to, Charles Saatchi was the first collector ever to buy my work. And what was interesting about Charles Saatchi was that he never really wanted to meet the artist that he, at least initially, he never really wanted to meet the artist that he bought the work from. And it was such a relief to have someone who would pay money for what you did without you having to sell it to them.
I would like to ask you if there was any relationship for choosing the name In the Air concerning the time of the corona.
Title came in the time of the corona. And yes, it does have some, what was happening, what was in the air, it could have been called What's Going On, but it's in a sculpture park that's rolling kind of grasslands. It's elevated up. I'd thought of a nature-related title originally, kind of to do with clusters of things, but then I didn't specifically think about Corona in relationship to the title. I just thought In the Air seemed to fit with the way that rumors and stories were spreading, not so much to do with airborne disease, but just to do with what the intellectual or social or physical environment was.
You told me that there was no opening for this big work. Is something being planned?
We're now, and I've said, how about doing it in April? And because now is the wrong time. The winter is the wrong time to do it. I do think that it's tough on the everybody involved that there hasn't been a celebration.
How was it for you to work and communicate with other people in this time?
one of the interesting things about, obviously in the past, we'd always meet up to talk about what to do, where we're going, to work together. In the situation with Corona, you couldn't, face-to-face meetings were hard to have. You couldn't have face-to-face meetings, but the technology that we're using now, this Zoom technology or the Microsoft Teams or whatever, did fill the breach. And I found it kind of quite extraordinary that in those situations where you're kind of discussing something, you know, how do we do this, or how effective that meeting was, and where also the camera can kind of move around and kind of look at things in particular, and if you know each other kind of well beforehand, you've got a kind of, you know what you're talking about. It doesn't really feel like it's particularly different. You know, it doesn't feel like it's or that the way that you're networked together feels feels social in a positive way. On the other hand, team Zoom meetings which are like bureaucratic ones, are really tedious and kind of very hard to concentrate on. And you could tell people getting bored by the way they were changing the backgrounds, and talking in that static camera was is tricky. But if if the camera is also moving and looking at stuff, so you all know what you're looking at, then that, I think that's a really great thing. I don't even have a word for what that kind of relationship is, what that kind of network is, what sort of social group it is for people. And actually, one of them, one of the meetings is someone in the States, someone in the north of England, somebody at the fabricators in Milton Keynes, me, and someone in an office somewhere else, and we're all talking about the same subject, and it doesn't feel, I don't know what you call that. I don't know what that's, so that kind of social group only it existed before, but it kind of really came into its own.
Can you share with us some exhibition that you had on this time?
During the Corona time, like I said, the last trip I made was to Berlin to prepare an exhibition in outside in Schloss Rheinsberg. Because I knew I'd done that one visit, then when the exhibition was finally installed, a year and a half late, I could still do the installation knowing what the space was like. And I've also made work with the gallery in Berlin through Thomas Schulte, which has been entirely made by us communicating over a distance. And it's okay. The work is quite good. You send instructions away. I don't think it's really the best basis to carry on. And somebody else makes the work. I don't think that's quite ideal. There has to be some point of physical contact, I think. Now, and I've just done a show in Shanghai with the Lisson Gallery in Shanghai, which is a show in a space I've never visited. And I think it worked quite well. It's had a very good reception, but that's quite tenuous.
In the situation of Corona, which kind of new process and ideas and thoughts came and developed in this time?
I think that you start to think metaphorically about stuff. So at the beginning of COVID, I'm stuck at home and I'm making small models, 6 models of these out of cardboard, which in a sense you could think of it as nervous activity, kind cutting up cardboard tubes and kind of making something and then getting interested in what it was you're making. Then, and I think, hey, these are like shoes, and the shoes can step out. They can, the shoes can travel, leave footprints or whatever. They were both like shoes and like footprints. And I'd been doing a fair amount of reading anyway about footprints and about time and footprints, and animal tracks and things. But they also have this kind of curved, unstable relationship to the ground. And so then if you make them bigger, they become like boats and waves. And but then if they're boats, they're setting out on a journey, but they're also at sea. And in English, you'd say that if you're all at sea, then you don't know where you're going. So it's all that stuff sort of comes into it. And scale, actually, it's interesting that it's scale that changes it. So if it changes from a shoe to a boat, and shoes and boats are pretty similar things, but although they mean different things, but they were, for me, they're quite optimistic because they're both either as shoes or as boats. They're more to do with traveling than they are to do with being lost. And I was invited to a show in China, so I sent drawings with some photographs of a 360-degree view. I made 6 models. I didn't scan them. I've been looking for a scanner that I can use for a long time, but I haven't found the one I like. And then they were made in a larger version in China on the basis of that, and I didn't see them. I haven't seen them. And then another 3, the other 3 I made up in a slightly smaller scale, but using the fabricator over here. But they've also gone to China. They've gone to Shanghai, and in that case, there was. I think the difference there is that, and we're getting into something quite kind of particular here. All of them have a waveform on the surface, which is made by cutting up cardboard tubes and assembling them kind of to make the wave. And the amount of curve that you have determines the pitch of the wave, which is kind of what I thought. But in over here, we were talking about it, and this is where the difference was. They wondered about, instead of doing it as a rolling, you could do it by folding, and then the fold is the gap in the fold is determined by the pitch of the wave. So actually, each facet is a different size because the pitch of the wave is different, and that is a kind of a solution which comes out of something different from sending it and getting it done. Because then the idea about, well, you could do this another way is much more something that comes out of a face-to-face contact than it does from a.
Do you want to say something about the new work in Shanghai?
Actually, I'm really sorry I haven't been to Shanghai. I've never been to Shanghai. I've been to Beijing a lot. I've been to China a lot. And it would have been really exciting to go to Shanghai. The work that I made, the work that's been actually very successful in that show, and which is ceramic. It's porcelain work that actually we had made some time ago, but had kind of forgotten about. And then we glazed them, and the glazing worked fantastically well. You wouldn't have thought that it could. And they, of course, taking porcelain to China is just like they really like porcelain in China. So here's the image, and that image has kind of gone viral on the. I've had people from all over saying, "Oh, we saw that; it looks really great." And it's surprising how that happens. That can catch the moment. But it's a pity I didn't go to China. That's all I can say. You do a show that's a success and you've not seen it.
Can you share with us which work were developed at that time and are still being developing today?
I started doing a lot more drawing. I like to draw. And then I wondered about starting to draw on an iPad. I don't know why it was that I thought it would be interesting to draw on an iPad, but anyway, I thought it would be. I bought an iPad that I could draw on, and at first the relationship of the drawing tool I was using to the glass surface was terrible. You know, it kind of skids across and kind of. But then I discovered I could draw with my finger, which worked very well, or that you could have I could get a silicon tip that would work on the glass, and kind of, and then it started to be a positive experience. And then I started to have, I was starting to draw very regularly. About 18 months I've done, had a fairly regular practice. And then I started to wonder about what to do with them. Then I started, I did print a couple. I don't like that. I don't like the way that digital imagery transfers to print. I find it a bit dead. And then I went to see the cathedral in Coventry, which is a fantastic 50s building, really great piece of architecture which I've never seen before. Coventry in England, it was a big textile manufacturing place, making ribbons and that kind of stuff. Not like Manchester with cotton, but more decorative items. And in the museum nearby, they had some pictures that were photographs that had been transferred into woven pictures, kind of printed. And I thought that the transferring the digital images to something that had the physicality of a piece of embroidery was a positive change. The problem with the printing digital imagery is that it kind of slips off the iPad onto the paper, and it's just a kind of nothing. Photographs that were in Matthias's show, what was interesting about them is that the printer had added information to the photographs. So, and I thought that possibly it would be a way to, if I could find a way to transfer my iPad drawings into either an embroidered or a printed textile, then that would work. And I tried the people who made the one I saw in Coventry, but they were really not interested in working with an artist. But then Justinia did some research and found a company in Taipei in Taiwan that said they could do it, and we started. I gave them a couple as a test, and they came back really quite good. So I've been working with them ever since, gradually building up this group of woven embroidered pictures, and that's been exciting. This is what I've been really 8 or 9 months, the thing that I've worked on hardest. I have to make it happen. So I've made, from the COVID time, I've got 2 groups of work that have no outlet at the moment. I have a group of 25 prints, lithographic prints, and I have a group of 64 embroidered drawings, and I still don't know how to show them. So I can be excited by them, and I can't. But with galleries, they're not that interested in things that maybe exist in multiples. But I think I could make a great show with 26 lithographs and 64, and it'd be entirely wall-based. It's not on the floor. But I think it could be a great show. But I have to find somewhere. But also think, or is as excited as I am about the possibility.
I would like to say thank you for Richard for this talk.
Okay, thanks, Amit. Pleasure. It's nice talking to you.
On the second part of Talk and Discussion with Richard Deacon, we're going to discuss with him about his approach to art, sculpture, and fabrication. He will share with us his experience at the time of the pandemic in the UK and around, communicating with people, and how he heard for the first time about Corona from his friend in China, reflecting about the present, and sharing with us some inspiring moments. Subscribe below or in the website www.sleepingfortomorrow, and for seeing and hearing more talks to get the latest notification of our talk and discussion.